Rejected Moon. Episode 10, Harrowmere. Written by Mia. We rode for Harrowmere at dawn, because the speaker said the risen would still be there. The Severed's dead don't wander far from where they're made until they've finished unmaking everything warm within reach, and Harrowmere had been a small village, and there was not much left in it to unmake. I had argued against bringing anyone. I'd stood in the high court and said I'd go alone, that the bell was the thing the Severed wanted, and the bell shouldn't drag 40 good wolves toward it. The speaker had laughed at me, the dry, awful laugh of a woman who'd watched my kind make exactly that mistake for 3 centuries. Martyrs, she'd said, are just cowards who've found a respectable way to be alone. You've been alone your whole life, child. You're good at it. It's the one skill I'd take from you if I could, because it's the one that's going to get everyone killed. So, I brought a company, 20 Night-Reach warriors. Ronan, because there was no force in any world that would have kept him from my side. And Kale, because he'd asked to be put where the Severed was thickest, and I am not above using a man who has asked to be used. We rode mostly in silence. 20 Night-Reach warriors who 3 days ago would have spat at the idea of following a Greywater Omega anywhere, a king who would not look at the Alpha across the column, an Alpha who would not look at the king, and me in the middle of all of it, the bell they were riding toward a thing that wanted to ring me. I had never led anything in my life. I'd carried laundry and eaten in the gaps and made myself small enough to survive, and now 20 hardened wolves shaped their pace to mine and waited on my word, and I kept glancing back to see who they were really following before remembering it was me. That's the thing nobody warns you about being needed after a life of being nothing. It doesn't feel like power. It feels like a coat 3 sizes too big that everyone insists was tailored for you, and you keep waiting for the real owner to come and take it back. We smelled Harrowmere before we saw it. Not rot. That was the wrong part, the part that turned the warriors gray. The Severed's dead don't rot. They smell of nothing at all, a clean, cold absence, the smell of a room where something should be and isn't, and 20 hardened wolves who'd have charged a council army without flinching went quiet and close as we came down into the dead village, because there is an old animal part of us that knows wrong before the mind can name it, and Harrowmere was wrong all the way down. Ronan rode close on my right and named what he could of it under his breath, the way he'd named the world for me on the ride east, except there was nothing kind to name now. No birds, he said. No flies. A village 4 days dead in summer should be loud with flies, and there's nothing, because there's nothing here for them to want. The Severed doesn't leave food. It leaves absence. He'd gone gray himself. I've fought the council my whole life. Men in iron gray who'd burn a city and sleep well. I knew how to hate them. Cruelty you can stand against. This isn't cruelty. Cruelty at least cares. This is hunger that's forgotten it was ever anything but hunger. And I reached for his thread without thinking, for Ronan's steadiness, because mine had run out at the edge of a dead village, and he let me, and we rode the last of the way into Harrowmere, holding the bond between us like a rope strung over a drop. They were waiting in the square. Of course they were. The Severed had left them there like a message, because the Severed had been making messages out of the dead for longer than there have been words to read them.
40 of them.
40 souls who'd lain down in their beds for nights ago and risen with the moon cut out of them, and they stood in the square of their own village in the gray morning, not milling, not restless, simply waiting, flat silver-dark eyes turned toward us as one the instant we entered, because they had felt the bell come. They had felt me, the way a drowning thing feels air. A child near the front, an old man, a woman still in the apron she'd died in, people who had been loved for days ago by someone who was probably among the scattered living in these hills right now, praying they'd been spared. Don't look at their faces, Kale said, low, beside me, and I realized he'd moved without my noticing to my unguarded side, the way Ronan took the other. The two of them, who would not share a sky, agreeing without a word to share a flank. Whatever's swearing them, it isn't them. You start grieving the faces, you hesitate, and the thing about a severed is it doesn't hesitate. It can't. There's nothing in it left to hesitate with. He's right, Ronan said, and I felt how much it cost him to say it.
Wren.
We clear them, and we do it fast, and we do it clean, and we grieve after. That's the only mercy on the table. And then the woman in the apron opened her mouth, and the severed spoke to me through her. And the voice that came out was not a voice. It was the sound the bottom of the world makes, poured through a dead woman's throat, and it said one word, my word, the word it had been waiting 300 years to say to the last of my blood. Sister. I will not pretend I held the line. The word went into me like the cold goes into water, all at once, all the way through, and for one moment I forgot every single thing the speaker had taught me about choosing knowing, and I just stood there in the dead square while the severed's dead came for me, because sister is the cruelest thing it could have said, and it knew, it always knows, that is the whole horror of it. Because here's the thing I had not told anyone, not Ronan, not the speaker, not even fully myself. It was right. That was the horror under the horror. I was the last of a bloodline the world had thrown away, hunted, exiled, hidden in a laundry, rejected under the open moon. And so was it. The severed and I were the only two of our kind left awake in the world. The only two who knew what it was to be made of the moon and treated like a disease. And when it called me sister across a dead square in a dead woman's voice, some buried, frozen, 19 years alone part of me answered yes before the rest of me could scream no. It had found the one word that could open me, not a threat, a claim of kinship, the thing I'd wanted my whole life, offered by the one thing in the world I could not afford to want it from. And I hated, standing at the edge of myself in that dead square, how good the lie of it felt, how much of me had been waiting, all along, to be called kin by anything at all. It was Kale who pulled me back from the edge, physically, a hand fisted in my collar hauling me out of a child's reaching gray hands, and it was Ronan who put himself in the gap and gave me the half-second I needed, and it was the bell, my own power, rising whether I called it or not, because the body wants to live even when the mind has gone somewhere cold. That saved the rest of us. I burned, smaller than the battlefield, controlled, the way the speaker had drilled into me in the high stone room, cold silver light, called and shaped and aimed, and where it touched the risen they came apart. Not destroyed so much as released, the cut bonds broken, ends going quiet, the bodies folding down into the simple stillness they should have had 4 nights ago. It was not killing. That was the thing I understood as I did it, the thing that changed everything. I was not killing 40 villagers. They were already gone. I was unmaking the severed's work, one stolen soul at a time, undoing the cut, giving 40 people the death the dark had denied them, and every time I did it, the bell rang, and far below the world the thing that had called me sister leaned closer, pleased, because it was teaching me to ring myself like a struck note, one act of mercy at a time, exactly as the warden had promised it would. By the end the square was full of the quiet dead, the true dead, and 20 Nightreach warriors stood breathing hard around me, and not one of them had had to strike a blow, and that was its own kind of terrible, because it meant they had all just watched what I was, up close, in the daylight, and there is no one seeing a girl unmake 40 corpses with light pouring out of her hands. We burned Harrowmere's dead properly after, the old rites, the ones that send a wolf back to the moon, because they'd been denied it once, and I would not let them be denied it twice. And while the pyres burned, Ronan found me at the edge of the village, and Kale came too, and the three of us stood in the cold smoke, and I said the thing I'd worked out with the light still aching in my hands. It freed them. My voice didn't sound like mine. The Risen. I thought I was destroying them, and I wasn't. The bond was already cut. They were already dead, and the light just let them go. Finished what the Severed started, but clean. Gave them back to the moon. I looked at the two of them, which means the Severed isn't only making weapons. It's making bait. It cut 40 bonds it didn't need to cut, in a village too small to matter, and left them in a square for me to find, because it knew the only way I'd free them is to burn, and every time I burn, I ring. It's not trying to overwhelm us. It's trying to get me to do its waking for it. Every mercy I perform brings it further up out of the deep. The kinder I am, the faster it rises. Ronan went very still. Then we don't free them, he said, slowly, hating it. We leave the Risen where they fall. We fight them the old way, with teeth and steel, and you never burn, and the bell stays quiet. And the Severed makes 10,000 more, and we can't kill them fast enough with teeth, and the world fills up with the walking unmade while I keep my hands clean to keep it asleep. I shook my head. That's the Council's answer, Ronan. Keep the bell quiet. Keep the world small. Let the dark win slowly, so it doesn't win fast. I'm not doing it. I told the houses I'd find a way to kill the thing, and standing in that square, I think I finally understand the shape of the question, even if I don't have the answer yet. I looked at the burning village, the people I'd given back to the moon. It calls me sister because we're made of the same thing, the moon, poured into a body. It's a moon-born Ronan. Or it was once, before the founders or the council or whoever it was cut its bond and left it in the dark to go hollow and hungry and 300 years insane. The Severed isn't the opposite of me. It's what happens to one of me when the world decides we're too dangerous to keep and throws us away and lets us rot. Kale made a sound low, like he'd been hit. That's why the council hid your line, he said slowly. Not only because the bell wakes it, because every moonborn they failed to protect, everyone they hunted or exiled or let die alone, was one more candidate to become that thing. They weren't just keeping the dark asleep. They were making more of it. Every cruelty they did your kind in the name of safety cut another bond, pushed another moonborn toward the hollow. They've been feeding the Severed for 300 years and calling at the wall. He looked sick, and I understood what it cost him to follow the thought all the way down, because he had done it too, cut a moonborn loose under the open moon, in front of everyone, and called it protecting his pack. Wren, he said, very quietly, I rejected you. Under the moon. If you'd broken the way an Omega is supposed to break, if you'd gone into the dark alone, the way it did, he couldn't finish. He didn't have to. We three stood there with the same arithmetic in our mouths, that the thing trying to unmake the world was only a moonborn nobody had reached in time, and that I had come within one cruel public sentence of being it. And in the cold smoke of Harrowmere, with one man who'd thrown me away and one who never would, I understood the thing that was going to define the whole rest of this war, that I was not hunting a monster. I was hunting a mirror, and the only way to kill it might be to become so fully the thing it never got to be, a moonborn loved and kept and let to burn as bright as her own size, that I could reach into the hollow heart of the dark and do the one thing nobody had done for it in 300 years. Not destroy it, not contain it. Hear it, and give it, at the very end, the death it had been denied, the same mercy I'd just given 40 villagers, scaled up to the size of a god. If it didn't unmake the whole world first, And if I didn't wring myself to death, getting close enough to try. But that was the war now, named at last in the smoke of a village I'd given back to the moon. Not a hunt, but a homecoming I'd have to survive. Walking, awake and burning and loved, toward the one door in the world the dark had been left alone behind for 300 years, to knock on it and be let in. To be continued. That was episode 10 of Rejected Moon. If the moon has you now, the next episode is waiting. Subscribe so you don't lose the trail. The complete book is available on Amazon, and early episodes and bonus chapters are on my Patreon. Links are in the description.
I've Mia.
Thank you for listening.